Good morning and welcome to newspaper headlines on Monday's edition of Morning Live. We'll kickstart with the Punch newspaper. We'll have all the papers for review this morning. Ogaga and I will be going to them. My name is Blessing Usiagada. Now, on the Punch newspaper, major headline says 2027 candidates Saturday deadline puts parties under pressure. The riders. Parties rush to submit presidential NAS nominees ahead of INEC's Saturday deadline. APC uploads Kwara, Yobe, Imo Governor Senate nomination forms. PDP submits nomination forms for over 200 candidates. Get details on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. The top strip killings. Federal government warns South Africa, threatens tough action. That's on page 8. ICPC recovers 5.8 billion naira cash in 6 months. That's on page 8 as well. Federal government secures $11.4 billion World Bank loans in 3 years. Get details on page 45. At the bottom strip of the Punch, we have Dangote beats US ships 757 billion naira jet fuel to Europe. That's from a report. It's on page 45. Robbers kill Ondo technician defending family. That's on page 4. COAS, citizens key to winning security war. That's on page 8 of the Punch newspaper. Also, we have this one at the top says Senate meets Tuesday as fake agency budget rule deepens. That's on page 2. We see how this will turn out because questions need to be answered on how that fake agency had a budget. All right, those are the headlines from the front page of the Punch newspaper this morning.
The next daily we have for you this morning is The Guardian, and the lead here says US IPO drive tests Nigerian fintech's governance, compliance strength. US IPO drive tests Nigerian fintech's governance, compliance strength. Let fuel prices reflect present market realities, and this is an editorial you can find on page 16 of the Guardian newspaper. Rep urges suspension of NYC reforms for wider consultations. Rep urges suspension of NYC reforms for wider consultations. PFIPC pressure mounts for independence probe answers. Chief of Army Staff assures ongoing operation to rescue Oyo abductees. Lawmaker calls for calm as fresh tribal attack claims 3 persons. Federal government condemns killing of 2 Nigerians in South Africa, 1 in Cote d'Ivoire. Very, very sad narratives on front of the paper this morning. Oil majors spill 125,000 barrels, pollute Niger Delta. Now to the top strip of the Guardian newspaper. US pledges close scrutiny on 2027 polls amid CPC designation. 8.8 trillion naira off budget. Atiku, Huriwa, seek probe as Obi demands Tinubu's resignation. And lastly, from the Guardian newspaper, report alleging 500 billion naira offer to split South votes false, baseless. Now, those are the headlines from the Guardian newspaper. You can get yourself a copy or log on to the website.
Next is the Daily Trust newspaper. On the Daily Trust this morning, we have as major headline Al-Majari Commission earmarks 8.4 billion naira for road projects. Now, this headline is quite confusing because the Al-Majari Commission that is outside its statutory mandate. The commission was set up to address the rate of out of school children in
Children.
some northern states. And this headline here says the commission has earmarked 8.4 billion naira for road
Maybe it's to, for
projects.
easy access to schools.
That's not in their. That's not their statutory mandate. It's not their duty
That's where
to
the
go
National
for
Assembly comes in
exactly.
for
And
oversight.
8.4 billion naira is quite a lot. If that money is put into renovation of schools or making sure that children go to schools, it's something. Well, that's the major headline on the Daily Trust. Other headline says Phantom Council push for independent probe grows. Bandits kill 8, sack 30 Sokoto communities. Leaked audio on Air stirs controversy in Kaduna. At the bottom strip of the Daily Trust this morning says federal government, opposition differ over alleged 8 trillion naira off budget spending. Final moment of Nigerian imprisoned in Cote d'Ivoire. Bauchi ex-governor or ex-deputy governor's son and daughter die in auto crash. That's sad. Then 67-year-old caregiver allegedly hides cocaine in plantain peels. Those are the headlines from the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper.
Okay, now we consider the Daily Sun and the major headline. Again, federal government under fire over PFIPC scandal. The riders, Turaki-led PDP demands forensic probe. Officials suspension. Scandal regular feature of Tinubu's administration, a statement credited to Atiku. Serap charges National Assembly to probe 1.3 billion naira allocation. Nigeria faces $10 billion debt risk as banks favor government lending over businesses. The writer attached to that story, buyers starving real sector of credit. It's coming from an MPC official. 2026 global election. Don't sell your PVCs. Oyebanji declares. Like the headline, I'll take it again. 2026 global election. Don't sell your PVCs. Oyebanji declares. Please don't. Alleged 8.83 trillion naira in unbudgeted expenditure. Report false, misleading. Statement coming from Oyedele. Tinubu must resign, and this is a writer attached to that story and a statement coming from Peter Obi. Experts task federal government on transparency. Nigeria, 8 others account for 83% of global gas flaring worth $54 billion, and this is according to the World Bank. Seplat ends gas flaring in its onshore operations, begins LPG production. And you can see a photo speak of the President Bola Tinubu, and he is with the Secretary for Relations with States and International Organizations of the Holy See, talking about Archbishop Paul Gallagher, and you can also see the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Bianca. APC promise fallout. Governors aggrieved. Aspirants trade blames. The rider parties fence mending falters in key states. And lastly, from the Daily Sun newspaper, Uzodinma Lords Tinubu, National Assembly over State Police Bill. The rider addresses House of Lords, London on leadership.
Now let's check out the Vanguard newspaper. Front page of the Vanguard newspaper and major headline says PFIPC controversy. How SGF's office cleared Adeyemi for Canada summit. Riders. Troubling pattern of scandals now too frequent, says Atiku. Presidency can't escape accountability over Gbajabiamila claims, says PDP. Sarah asked Akpabio Abbas to explain 1.3 billion naira allocation to fictitious PFIPC. Details on page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper. And indeed, the Senate would need to explain to Nigerians how that commission got 1.3 billion naira budget. Federal government denies spending 8 trillion naira outside budget. The writer says Obi asked Tinubu to resign over spending. That's on page 9. Insecurity, soaring operational cost. Others stall ICT boom. That's on page 11. Oyo school abduction, rescue operation ongoing, says COAS. That's on page 39. The truth is, I don't see the reason why they're giving us these updates because the NUT, they've called off their strike, they're back to the classrooms. So what we need to hear is that these children have been rescued and they're back home. Zamfara won't negotiate with terrorists, says Governor Lawal. That's on page 45. US to closely monitor 2027 polls, says Congressman Riley Moore. That's on page 9. Xenophobia. Federal government condemns killing of 2 Nigerians, demand justice. That's on page 6. Now, this is getting out of hand, and the federal government should not just be throwing threats, but it should take action. NDLEA intercepts Malaysia bound cocaine, nabs PhD student mastermind. That's on page 6. 2027 polls. Parties rush to meet INEC's uploading deadline. That's on page 8. Those are the headlines, the front page of the Vanguard newspaper.
All right, we consider our next daily this morning, which is the Daily Times. And this headline here says, just below the masthead, Court reserves ruling in Times Multimedia, CAX versus Afrexim Bank IP theft suit to September 29. Zamfara won't negotiate with bandits, says Lawal. Federal government rejects shadow budget allegation, says 8 trillion naira claim misreads IMF report. Cut lending rates after bank recapitalization, MPC urges CBN. I'll take that again. Cut lending rates after bank recapitalization, MPC urges CBN. Those are the headlines from the Daily Times.
Okay, next is the Nigerian Tribune newspaper. On the Nigerian Tribune, we have as major headline, IMF report on budget spending sparks debate. That's on page 4. Riders as controversy trail claim of 8.8 trillion naira of budget spending. It is misleading, incorrect, no evidence provided, says federal government. 8.8 trillion naira expenditure is not budgeted. Tinubu should resign, says Obi. That's on page 4. At the top, we have nomination list. NDC may run into crisis. Kwankwaso block PDP more alignment. We are working towards amicable resolution, says party spokesman. That's on page 16. CBN targets 2.0 trillion naira treasury bill issuance in July amid tight liquidity push. That's on page 14. Nigerians to pay more as green tax implementation begins at seaports. Oshun 2026, don't sell your PVCs. APC governorship candidate tells electorate. Ghost agency, how controversial DG lived in Oyo Palace got disowned by late monarch. That's on page 17. And then we have a study here from the health segment. Early menopause may raise lifetime heart disease risk by 40%. This early menopause may raise lifetime heart disease risk by 40%. High interest rates, credit crunch remain disincentive to private sector investments. There's so many writers about skip them, but you can get details on page 13 of the Nigerian Tribune newspaper. And I think that's our last paper this morning for review. And let's just quickly go through some of the writers. The Punch has a major one that says 2027 candidates. Saturday deadline puts parties under pressure. And one of the headlines I took from the Nigerian Tribune says nomination list NDC may run into crisis. But the spokesman of the party is saying they're working towards amicable resolution, and we hope that they get their acts together and the parties submit their list. I think APC they're in order. It's just left for other parties like the NDC and the PDP to finally submit the list of their nominees, and we'll see how that goes. Other headlines this morning. Major headline that's in all the papers this morning is that of the controversial fake agency. The Punch captured it this way: Senate meets Tuesday as fake agency budget row deepens. That's on page 2. I think it's another papers that you took this morning.
Yes, I love the way the Vanguard puts it. It says how PFIPC controversy, how SGF Secretary for the Government of the Federation, SGF's office, cleared Adeyemi for Canada Summit. And Adeyemi is the alleged self-proclaimed DG of the PFIPC, and we've got a couple of riders attached
Yes.
to that.
The-
Interesting,
yeah.
troubling pattern of scandals now too frequent, because when you put that side by side with what that is being understood from the IMF report that is currently
Oh,
viral,
yeah.
yes, because Nigerian Tribune puts it this way: IMF report on budget spending sparks debate. However, the Minister of the Economy, there was a paper that he had a comment on that. I'm trying to see if I can spot that right about now. Or seems like, okay, I've seen it on the Daily Times. It said federal government rejects shadow budget allegation, says 8 trillion naira claim mistreats IMF report. So Taiwo Oyonidi, I can't recall his own name now, but the Minister of the Economy was talking about how Nigerians, or those persons speaking on the IMF report and talking about the shadow budget allegation, that they didn't understand it in totality, that it is not what was stated there. But to get details on that, you can head to page 2 of the Daily Times to get yourself a copy of the Daily Times and get details into that. However, what was said on the Vanguard is quite disturbing, because if this Adeyemi,
Adeyemi.
who had claimed, or who is claiming to be the Director General of this so-called Presidential Foreign Intervention Promotion Council, was approved by the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation for a trip to Canada and Africa FinTech Summit. So it begs the question: what is really going on in the presidency? Because
Yeah.
it is also claimed and reported that it was the chief of staff to the president,
Femi
Femi
Gbajabiamila.
Gbajabiamila, that called him out, this fake DG office. So how come? And guess what? Even this same man got an office at the Federal Secretariat. So who? That's why, if you see this appointment,
Yeah.
the truth is, if this is done, and that's why I support those persons that are calling for independent probe, because the government, the government can go ahead with their probing, but of course we know there's trust deficiency when it comes to the Nigerian government and its people. So
Yeah.
that's why I call for an independent probe as well. Because if the government goes further to probe this, see, I tell you the truth, there will be people in government agencies that will be complicit.
And that's why-
it might not
yeah.
necessarily be, it might be out of negligence, or it might be by colluding. However, an independent probe should be done, and those persons found culpable, found guilty, should face the wrath of the law.
Yeah. Last week, precisely last week, Thursday, human rights activist Femi Falana actually countered Bayo Onanuga's statement. You know, Bayo Onanuga was very quick to come out and talk about how the agency is fake, how Adeyemi has a track record of being a fraudster, and then he cleared Femi Gbajabiamila from this scandal, saying Femi Gbajabiamila is not complicit in this scandal. And human rights activist Femi Falana was saying that the federal government has no right to clear anyone that is being mentioned in this scandal, and
When
it,
they've not,
and it is true.
the federal government are quick
Yes.
to just justify without carrying out investigations.
Bayo Onanuga, the question is, Bayo Onanuga, has he carried out a proper investigation to find out if indeed Adeyemi and Femi Gbajabiamila had no connection or no negotiations, because there's another part of the report that says, I think from Adeyemi's angle, he says Gbajabiamila asked for a certain
Amount
percent from the budget,
and he was paid in
yes,
proxy. He had paid about 50%
yes. So
only
he asked for
already.
a certain amount of money and he refused, and that's why Femi Gbajabiamila is now calling him out. Like you mentioned, this man has an office in the federal secretariat. I've seen pictures of him having visitors, having ambassadors of other countries coming to Nigeria. They hold meetings in his office. So there are questions that needs to be answered, and I really hope there will be an independent investigation, because the federal government cannot carry out this investigation, because many people, if this is
They've
true,
already been roped into
yes,
the
they've
situation.
been roped into it, and there is no how. The Senate and the House of the Senate will be meeting tomorrow. I really want to see how that will go, because they need to explain how that agency got 1.3
billion.
1.3 billion naira budget. Yes, we need to know how they got that budget, and we just hope that this time around there is accountability and they stop playing with the intelligence of Nigerians. Because how is it possible that an agency like that can be existing, have an office in the federal secretariat, and now the federal government is saying that that agency is fake? Not that the DG is fake or something, but that the agency itself is fake. There is nothing like that agency in Nigeria. A lot of questions begging for answers, and we need proper investigation to know what the truth is. And in other countries where we have scandals like this, we see a situation where the person involved will just willingly resign or willingly step aside until this issue is cleared. And I think an analyst already mentioned that at this point he thinks Femi Gbajabiamila should step aside until investigations are concluded. But instead, what we see is Bayo Onanuga coming out to defend him and saying that he's innocent. Now, we're not saying he's guilty, or we're not saying that the federal government is involved in this scandal or that they're shady deals. We're only saying proper investigations should be carried out and let the truth come to light. Because the DG now says he has gone into hiding, that they're coming after him, they're after his life and all of that. We don't need such scandals in the
this is
country.
Nigeria. Some couple of months ago, when the president of the Senate, Senator Godswill Akpabio, was also embroiled in certain scandals. To this step, they don't do that.
They should learn how to.
They don't do that
because
they don't do that here.
no, they do. They need to, because there's need for integrity. Our political office holders need to have integrity, and you need to be open to investigations if your hands are clean anyway. And then even if it's just like the is this senator that had the fake NYC certificate and a fake academic certificate as well, that was arrested last week by the DSS.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. That I was thinking we're talking about Femi Adeosun.
No,
Kemi. Kemi, rather.
No. So what we're saying is that our public office holders need to have integrity, and if deep down within you, you know that you are what they're being accused of, you're guilty. I think the best thing to do is to have some level of honor and integrity and really step aside. But these days we see that they still stay in power and look for a way to sweep it under the carpet. And I just hope that this story is not swept under the carpet.
And this is where we need our judiciary very well. But the judiciary now that is usually tagged as the last hope of the common man, I don't think they've lived up to the expectation of the common man. Because when we see situations like these, any Nigerian citizen should be able to sue and expect that justice will have a field day. But we see that it's as though it's either lady in judiciary that our eyes are blindfolded. It seems like they've taken away the blindfold and now she looks at faces and all of that, which should not be. So we need all of this. And like what Atiku said, to be fair to him, it's looking like he's right. Too many scandals in this administration now. Too many scandals. Now, well, like you said, it's not like we're having pockets. It's as though as we're done with one, even before we're done treating one, but
Another
the
one
next
comes
one is
up.
there. So it's
Yeah.
like, okay, we're trying to juggle so many things at the same time, which is not good at all. Which is not, it is really not good at all. Then there's this disturbing headline. Of course, we have to speak on this xenophobia
Yeah.
in South Africa and the effects. Now this paper puts it this way. The Punch puts it: killings. Federal government warns South Africa, threatens tough action. Now another paper captures that two were killed in South Africa and one in Cote d'Ivoire.
Now, Vanguard captured it this way: xenophobia. Federal government condemns killing of two Nigerians, demand justice. That's on
I,
page
I, I think I
six.
think the National Assembly, the presidency, government in general, they have to sit down again and ask themselves, do we really value the Nigerian life? Then, if their answer is yes, then they should try to get feelers if they are really sending out that message to other countries. Because Nigerians cannot just be dying like that. Just like that. Two in South Africa, now Cote d'Ivoire. So when now this is what happens, and it's the normal human psychology. When someone notices that you are not valued at home, when you come out, they will not treat you with value. So that's what's happening, and that's why you hear things. We've seen things in the past that um, don't come and claim rights here. Go back to your country and do this and do that. Why are you running away from your country if your country is that good? So I think things need to be done. Like I'm really happy that the federal government they're considering tough measures now. It's been a long time coming. It's high
Yeah,
time. It's high
for
time.
me, I think they should have considered it a long time ago.
That's what I'm saying.
Immediately this xenophobic attacks started, they should have considered it a long time ago because we saw before the protest started, we saw videos of how blacks were being attacked on the streets. And what hurts me the most is the South African government will come up and will come out every day to say that they're not in support
Support.
of violent attacks and violent protests, but you're doing nothing to really
They
secure
can't
the lives.
manage it.
The federal government is already making plans. Some
Evacuation.
yes, to evacuate Nigerians. Some have arrived in the country and making plans to evacuate more this week. So what's stopping the federal government to really ensure that the lives of these Nigerians or lives of these Africans are protected until their government come to take them away from the country? It's really sad to see that in this area we are witnessing, we're watching xenophobic attacks in South Africa. It's a shame on the South African government, and the world is watching. The world is watching. I hope that the international court does not just let this slide. I think that South Africa should be penalized for this action against
The
other
question
Africans.
is, what is African Union doing?
Exactly. What
So
is the
these
AU
these
doing?
these these organizations, these bodies, regional bodies, I think that they just tend to just have the title and say we are this, we are that, but they're really doing nothing.
So
By
other
this point, the AU should have sanctioned South Africa.
yeah, they need to be sanctioned really. And the federal government, the life of one Nigerian is so precious. I love the way when you see other countries like the US, how they protect the lives of their citizens. And just one person, once something happens to one person, they lose one citizen. It's you see the nation of the country, you see the way they react. That's how it should be. The federal government really should not let this slide. Two Nigerian lives have been cut short, and the federal government
In
they need to
addition
act.
to others that
Yes, they need to act. Maybe others that are not even being reported, we don't even know. So they really need to act. They need to move as fast as possible, evacuate those that are ready to come home, and then speak with the South African government. Really, this is really sad, and it's heartbreaking. And I hope that those who are returned home, the federal government will have a way of helping them reintegrate back into the society. And South African government last week, I think during the weekend, was saying something about they will not pay compensation. They will not compensate those who had businesses in South Africa. That they should sell their businesses instead. Before, so it's a really messed up situation. But the federal government really needs to hold its ground as the giant of Africa, as a big brother. They should be able to hold their ground and really speak with the South African government. We are watching. We don't want it to look like we are just called the giant of Africa, and then we really cannot do anything. Like you mentioned, if we are in the country and our lives are not, or we are not treasured here in the country, of course other countries will not treasure us. But then we need to fight for our own. The federal government, we really needs to act this time around. So I think those are the headlines to take this morning. Yeah, those are the headlines to take this morning. There are lots of headlines, but you get copies of these papers for yourself. You read them up, or you check online and check their websites to get details of this headlines that we've taken this morning. Thank you so much for joining us on our newspaper headlines this morning. We'll go on a short break, and when we come back, we'll continue.
Delta State I dey so. With wetin I dey see so, very soon Delta State go be like Canada, America.
Now Delta State today, for front, now one of the bridges where Governor Sheriff don already commissioned.
In fact, I dey abroad.
I dey abroad.
About to go wake up. Gary don't finish for house.
I dey abroad.
Okay, you do Obuko Ogenekewe Street. I beg, I won't go buy Gary.
Collect money for that trouser.
Okpako, you never hear what did happen.
Say start early this year.
Governor Sheriff, he don't approve 200,000 naira special allowance. Now welfare package for doctor.